Hello, everybody. MicroCAD team here. My name is Rebecca, part of the marketing team. We also have Mariah here as well, and Daniel. And we're going to be going through Enscape and our own Revit tools as well. So give a couple seconds, see some others are joining as well. But while you guys are tuning in, flipping over to this screen, we're going to launch a quick poll just to kind of get a feel for the audience, and the question should say, do you know about real-time rendering? Apologies if that got cut off, but the questions, do you know about real-time rendering? Just so we can kind of get a feel for what you guys do know. We got some answers coming in here. Looks pretty even so far, 50-50. All right, I think we got all those votes there. So we did get 50-50 yes and no. So that's good, yeah. But I will go ahead and hand it over to Daniel from Enscape, and I'm going to show you guys all of that. So let's get started.
Right. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Hold on one moment, please. I'm just going to turn off my camera for the presentation, and I'll turn it back on for the Q&A. Okay. All right, thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you all for tuning in to today's presentation. I'm very excited about our new partnership with MicroCAD, and I'm very happy to be working with Rebecca and the entire MicroCAD team. It's just really a great organization. As Rebecca said, my name is Dan Monahan, and I'm the business leader for Enscape in the Americas. I'm going to take the next 20 minutes or so to introduce you to Enscape and how real-time 3D is changing today's building design process. Now, for the presentation that I prepared, it's kind of high. It's a high-level introduction to real-time rendering. If you're already using Enscape, you may find my presentation a little elementary, but it's not a problem. If you want to take a deeper dive into the software, simply contact your MicroCAD rep and we can set something up. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. When we think of real-time rendering, it's images like these that come top of mind. However, more subtle and perhaps even more important is how real-time 3D is improving the design process. Visual representation has always been the cornerstone of the design practice. However, it's also been isolated and disconnected from the design process. Today's design process is fractured. We stop design in order to represent, collect feedback, then manually coordinate what we learned back into our design model. Then we restart the cycle at the next project milestone. But why? Why does rendering and visualization have to be separate from design? Why can't it be integrated? Well, with traditional rendering technology, it can take hours or sometimes even days to get at a high quality visualization. Correctly configuring textures and materials and lighting to achieve a realistic result is difficult and demands specialized know-how, and even then it can require a lot of trial and error. As a result, in many firms, 3D rendering and 3D visualization is a task reserved for presentations and is often relegated to specialists using specialty software or even subbed out completely. Real-time 3D is different. This next generation of visualization leverages new advances in graphics card technology, the same rendering technology you'll find in today's high-end video games. And while the results are incredibly impressive, more importantly, the results are instant and they're very easy to achieve. It's this speed and simplicity that are the cornerstones to Enscape. Quite simply, Enscape is the easiest way to go from this to this. Now, for us, ease of use and speed isn't just jargon. These are really truths, and they're truths derived from the fact that Enscape is a plugin and it's not a separate rendering program. Unlike other rendering programs, you don't exchange files or manually sync models. Enscape natively plugs into Revit, integrating into its interface and your BIM workflow. In many ways, Enscape is simply just another rendering mode, not a standalone program you need to learn. In fact, if you've ever used rendering in Revit, if you've ever added a light source or a texture, you already know how to use Enscape. The results are just easier, faster, and way more impressive. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to focus on the Revit workflow, but what I'll show you works the same in SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, and Vectorworks. After installing Enscape, you'll see a new Enscape ribbon in the Revit interface. To start Enscape, just go to the Enscape ribbon and click Start. Enscape will launch a new window where you can see your designs fully rendered. Any textures and lights you've set up in Revit will be automatically picked up in Enscape, and using the W, A, S, and D keys and the mouse, we can immediately begin to explore our project in 3D. To find specific views, we could use the Save 3D Views in Enscape to navigate around the model. Saved 3D Views not only changes your view, but will also show any visibility settings that you've saved in Revit. Because Enscape and Revit are integrated, BIM modeling and visualization is now simultaneous. It's not separate. You don't have to stop design in order to visualize in another software program. Now visualizations can be part of your Revit design workflow. In fact, in many Enscape offices, you'll find Revit open on one monitor and Enscape open up on the other. It allows designers to instantly see how their decisions affect the building's architecture and construction, and helps them get to decision points faster. For example, in this Revit project, if we change this generic wall type to be a storefront curtain wall, we could instantly see how that design decision changes the natural daylight coming into the room. And we could even see how that light changes over the course of a day. To easily understand how much light is hitting our surfaces, Enscape can render a heat map so we can better understand where we may have too much or too little lighting. Better understanding the lighting helps us to validate our design decision, and if we're good, we can immediately move on to explore other design elements like colors and material and artificial lighting. For example, from the Revit material browser, we can select a new flooring material from our library and change the flooring from this marble tile to a dark wood plank to better accommodate the natural light now in the space. If we switch to a nighttime scene, we can see the light sources we placed in Revit and begin to tune the lighting by adding additional light sources and editing the artificial light settings in Enscape. We could easily change a light's color or intensity or define a light's value very precisely using what we call an IES file. And because we're always working in Revit, our designs and our visualization, they're always in sync. For example, if we insert a table and chair grouping in Revit, you could immediately see them displayed correctly in Enscape. And if you delete objects, they're deleted in both your design model and your visualizations. So with Enscape, there's only one model, so a change anywhere is reflected everywhere. Streamlining communication is another huge advantage of Enscape and 3D and real-time 3D. As a designer, it gives you new ways to communicate to owners and others on the design and construction team. With Enscape, we can immerse stakeholders into our projects and walk them through even the most complex BIM models. Team members can get a feel for the spaces and see how elements are going together and check the qualitative parts of our design. And we can perform visual inspections with the team, catching errors that may be missed in plan review and investigating errors caught by automatic clash detection programs. Here, for example, we can see that this window is not placed correctly. If we right-click on the window, we can note the issue in Enscape's new BIM collaboration features. We can quickly define a state, a title, and a description for our issue. And once saved, the issue automatically becomes part of the project file and can be synced to external collaboration tools. Or, because Enscape and Revit are linked, instead of commenting in Enscape, we can easily fix problems like these on the fly by simply updating our Revit model. Now, because not everyone will want to communicate with will have access to Revit or Enscape, we can also share Enscape projects using a free viewer or we can send clients a link where they can view projects from any browser running on any device. This is a really great way to take your Enscape projects on site and into the field. And you could do everything that I just showed here with or without VR goggles. Another advantage of real-time rendering is that it will help you win more work. Now, for some clients, the quality of your presentation is a reflection on the quality of your firm. Enscape will help really to elevate and distinguish your firm and set it apart from your competition by allowing your designs to be seen and experienced like never before. For early stage design, when we don't want clients reacting to colors and materials, we can render scenes in one of Enscape's abstract rendering modes. Then as we go through design, we can gradually layer in more information as needed. With the materials set, we can use the families in Revit or the assets in Enscape's asset library to build out our final scenes. New in 2.9 is the ability to create custom assets and the introduction of video textures. We can apply video files as textures to represent any screen or to create special effects like fire in a fireplace. If we switch to an exterior scene, you'll notice by default that Enscape automatically adds a sky. In the visual settings dialog in Enscape, you could control some of the atmospheric effects in the scene. For example, we could easily edit the sun's brightness. There's also some fun settings that control how clouds are displayed. And for accurate sun studies, we can set the sun's position at a specific latitude and longitude and animate the sun's path as it moves throughout the sky. As we transition from day to night, we can also adjust the night sky. Here, for example, we can change the size of the moon, and we can change the brightness of the nighttime sky. To give the site some context, we can select a background from Enscape's default background library, or with a 360-degree camera, we could go out to our site and snap a picture and use it as our background in Enscape. So you can actually get your real site as a background for your projects. For marketing, we can export still renderings for presentation boards and our website. We can create 360-degree panoramic scenes that clients can navigate on their own. And we could create stunning animations and virtual reality projects that really showcase our work. Now let's take a look at some of the example output that you can get from Enscape 2.9. First, we can export real stunning renderings. This is an example of a 4K rendering. You can see the actual accurate lighting and materials that we can give our projects. In this scene, we actually added a bump and displacement map to the wood floor texture, so you can almost feel the relief in the flooring. The couch and the chairs are example of some of the over 2,000 objects that ship as part of Enscape's asset library. And as I mentioned before, you could create your own custom assets by downloading them from sites like BIM Objects or 3D Warehouse. And you could even model your own bespoke assets and use those in your rendered scenes. It works also for exterior rendering, so our scenes can tell the story of how our projects will support our community. And it works at all different scales, no matter how big the project. When saving out an image, we can also save out material ID maps and object ID maps and even depth of field maps for further compositing in Photoshop. We talked a little bit about the 360-degree panoramic views that Enscape can create earlier. To open a 360 panoramic view, Enscape can generate a URL or a QR code, such as you see in this drawing. If you have your phone handy and you want to take it out, take a second. I'm going to take a second and please scan the QR code that you see on the screen, and then you can click the link that shows up. And I'll open up actually what you're seeing if we don't have your camera. What we're finding is that if I go back to the Enscape drawing, I was talking with designer Bill Kearney. He's the BIM manager over at DLR, and he was sharing with me kind of an interesting workflow. So what they're starting to do is to embed these QR codes into their working drawings. So the contractor can get the floor plans, but then they can also get these interactive 3D scenes. So they get more information and can identify the project, maybe elements in the project a little bit easier from the floor plan. So it's just a real nice complement to the set of drawings that they're currently delivering to the contractor. So that's an example of Enscape's 360-degree panoramic capabilities. Animations. So to create this animation in Enscape, we simply define the camera path. We set keyframes to define where we want the camera to look, and then we can adjust the time between the frames to speed up or slow down the animation transitions between the frames. Enscape makes it very easy to create stunning animations like these. It's very straightforward process. Also new in 2.9 are atmospheric effects. You can kind of see the trees waving in the background, so we can actually set a wind value. We also are introducing video textures in 2.9. So video textures give your renderings really a new level of realism. You could use them to represent any size screen, as you're seeing here, or you can use them to create effects like fire in a fireplace, or blinking neon signs would maybe give another example. In fact, Rebecca, can you please add the link that I shared to the chat? So Rebecca's going to add a link to the chat, and if you go to the chat and you click on the link, it'll take you to a YouTube page that really shows off some really great animations that were generated from our clients. And then, of course, this can all be done in virtual reality. Now, in this presentation, we're not just set up to share virtual reality. If you'd like to see that, please contact your MicroCAD rep. We can set up a virtual reality demonstration for you. But that's the other added advantage, is it really just is, it's virtual reality from Revit in one click. So kind of next steps. First, I just want to stress to you that everything that I've shown here today, you can do. If you know how to add a light and material in Revit, you know the fundamentals of how Enscape works. It doesn't require any real specialized knowledge, and it's something that really democratizes visualization. It really makes it accessible to anyone in the firm. If you're interested in learning more about Enscape, please visit the Enscape page on the MicroCAD site, or contact your MicroCAD rep. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Rebecca to help answer any questions. Rebecca?
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was great. There was a lot of information, but if you guys do have any questions, put that in the questions little box. It should show up here in your menu, and we'll give you guys a few seconds if you want to throw those questions in there now. And also there are a couple of handouts as well. That should be below the questions area, just going through Enscape, and there is one for our Revit tools as well. If you guys want to take a look at those, in the video as well, should be in the chat. So I don't see any questions just yet, but we'll let that simmer a little bit, sure. And we'll hand this over to Mariah, and she'll be going through another plugin add-on that MicroCAD offers, our productivity tools. And just like Enscape, there's no training, pretty simple to use. You just, download, and it shows up there as a little tab. So we'll hand this over to Mariah. Just let's get the presenters swapped here with this technology. Just give me 1 second here.
I actually had a question for Dan myself that I came up with.
Sure, Mariah.
I'm sure if you're familiar with Revit a little bit, they do have walkthroughs that you can create within native Revit. Do
Yes.
those work in conjunction with Enscape? I know that's a question that we get a lot of times because the native rendering within Autodesk cannot actually render those. And,
Yes.
technically you could, but you probably need to have like a farm of computers to get those to a rendered state. So is that something that's possible?
So the workflow would, I think in that particular case, Enscape would replace that workflow. So instead of walking around the BIM model in Revit, we would actually walk around the BIM model in Enscape. And that's why I mentioned that in most firms, they have two monitors open. They're working with two monitors. They have Revit open on one screen, and then they have Enscape open on the other. And then what they typically do is they'll make a design change, as I showed, and then they'll walk around the scene in Enscape. Because if you've ever tried to walk around a large BIM model, you know it kind of can grind a little bit, right?
Yes.
And so with Enscape, no matter really the complexity of the model, we can easily walk around it. We can look at the project from different angles. We can really get a better sense with accurate lighting and shadows how our design changes will affect the space. And then once we validated our design, then we can kind of go back into Revit and continue the design process.
Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so we will start with the Revit tools, and then all the questions we can get answered at the end. So keep adding them in to the Q&A section right here. But I'll hand you over to Mariah, and she'll talk about our Revit productivity tools.
All right, thank you. And I just want to say, kind of backing off of Dan, not to sound too sales pitchy, I do have a background in architecture, so obviously rendering is something that is very common within that field. And personally and professionally, I do believe Enscape is a fantastic product. A lot of the points that Dan hit on, it is so easy to learn. You really do not need to have anyone specifically dedicated to rendering within your office, which I think can be a great asset for a lot of different teams. So with that, let's dive into MicroCAD's productivity tools. So our productivity tools are something that we have developed to enhance your workflow, support it, to give you a few more options than what you currently have out of the box with Revit. So I'm just going to flip over to that and do a live demo. So let's get over to Revit. And you will see that I am using Revit 2021. However, don't let that scare you. Our Revit tools are backdated as far back as your Autodesk accounts will allow you to go. So there's no grave differences between the versions, so no need to worry about that. And much like Enscape, MicroCAD Revit tools also get their own tab within the ribbon. So on mine, it is next to my modify, just to give you all a heads up. So I'm not going to go through every single tool specifically today, but we are going to do a little bit of an overview. Excuse me. So let's start our top left. So our BIM Manager panel is great for what it says it is. It is a great place for our BIM managers to go and get some information. So there's items such as folder. You're going to know where your file lives. Perhaps you've kind of lost it in the, conjunction. Maybe someone has sent you something. Great, easy way. Import and export. This has a lot to do with the families. So if you need to bring in a whole host of families, you can certainly do that with the import. The same way, if you need to export something from a current model, you can use that. Our BIM dropdown has a few instances in here. So my personal favorite is this Multitype Editor. So I'm going to bring this up. And knowing that I'm from an architecture background, I'm going to pick on doors constantly today. So hopefully you're okay with that. So this Multitype Editor is great for editing information that you want to be able to get to super quick. So for example, if I go down to my doors, you see in here a few different types of them. Perhaps when you started your project, you didn't know what that manufacturer was going to be, because if we're being honest, there's a whole host of door manufacturers out there. And depending upon what they come in as bid at or where you're going to get your lowest cost, you might go with a different manufacturer. So you can come in here. I'm going to go to my single flush, and we can see dive down here into my 36 by 84. And in here is all of those type parameters that hopefully you all are familiar with. So I can come in here and I'm going to look for my manufacturer. And in this instance, I'm going to say Pella, for example. I'm going to close that. That's actually going to populate. And then as reference, going to go to my door schedule real quick. You will see that that information is populated within your schedule. So another quick, easy way to put that information in there. Next up, and this is a really robust tool that we love to tell our clients about, and this is our BIM Query Tool. So if we bring up our BIM query, what this can do, it can basically format some Excel type looking spreadsheets within the Revit environment and then actually export them to Excel. You all can manipulate that information within Excel and then bring it back in yet again. So for example, if I do a drop down from our schedules, again, opening that door schedule, I can come in here, I can save. It would take me to a specific folder, do a save as. You can then edit in Excel as I stated. Once you're finished in Excel, you would do basically the opposite. You would open and then you would apply that, and whatever changes you made in Excel are going to populate. All right, so that is our BIM Manager panel. Next up is our QAQC panel. And this one is pretty robust. So under our project cleanup, so this is a great place, again, for your BIM managers or project managers to start to clean up some of the items listed here that might be cluttering your overall Revit project. So your unplaced rooms, your unplaced areas that I'm sure all companies deal with, you can come in here and easily clean those up. Because if you're familiar with cleaning up unplaced rooms, the only place you can actually delete them is out of schedules. So this just gives you another simpler place to find that information. Our QA model review. So our QAQC tags brings up some instances, and this is simply a way to QAQC your model. So is there untagged instances that you do need to tag? Are there tagged instances that for some reason you might want to clean up for a presentation type of view? That's what this panel is great for. And then during that drop down, that create tags is a great way to annotate something if it is not currently there. All right, under our analyzed, there certainly is a whole host of information. Like I said before, I'm not going to go down every single one, but this starts to give you an idea. I know an important one that we've seen recently is this room lighting and what that room area is, multiplied by the sum of the actual windows in that room. So if you're starting to lean towards green building design, LEED accreditation, this can certainly be helpful for you. Another one, is our path manager, which actually builds on top of the out of the box path. So our path manager allows you to save multiple paths. It allows you to calculate what that time is going to be, and you can have multiple paths throughout the building. Excuse me. Next up, just to be aware of it, visibility. This actually is related to a lot of rebar information and not so much architectural or MEP based, but we'll get to that later on for anyone that does not use this visibility dropdown. So next up is our import. So not to confuse everyone, this is actually different from the BIM query. So this import spreadsheet basically brings in a spreadsheet and kind of dumbs it down. If I bring up a quick one here, I did already. Open, please. You can see that it does not look very similar to a lot of out-of-the-box schedules. It doesn't have any lines or anything like that. So that's why we say it's not really smart information. Excuse me. All right, then next up is our align commands. I'm going to switch over here for a moment to kind of preview some of those. So under align, whole host of options within here. So your simple align, I select 2 items, you can simply align them to the left, to the right, top, bottom. Quick, simple, easy way to go about that. Same way with bottom or top, text, center, middle for all of your text options. And then another powerful tool that we have is our text. So to uppercase and to lowercase, if someone has typed something in sentence case, you can easily change it to uppercase and have that ready to go in no time. So moving over to our fun little topic called bubbles. That one always makes me giggle just a little bit. So the bubbles allow you to show or hide these, as they are actually called bubbles in Revit, for your levels and for your grids. So perhaps if I want to hide at this point, I can click once and I can turn them off. One caveat I do want to make you aware of: if your grid or your level line is pinned, it will not actually work like this, so you will need to unpin it first and then turn that on or off as you need to. So under our renumber, so there's a whole host in here, and I know a lot of our clients like these types of tools. So renumber by room. So in our dropdown, we do see there's the category doors, furniture, lighting, and windows. And at this moment, I'm just going to use actually this active view. So kind of focus on some doors up here in the top right of my screen. And what we're going to do, we're actually going to rename them based upon the room. So I'm just going to go ahead and do an OK. And as you'll see, all of that information did update and change. So it's a great way to quickly clean up that information. Renumber mark parameter. Actually, let me scoot over here for the moment. Zoom in a bit. So renumber mark parameter. This can be really anything that has a mark parameter associated with it. So perhaps in this instance, I'm looking at desks. You can do alphabetical or numeric or some sort of combination if that's what you would prefer. So I'm going to do numeric for the most part. Do mark. And just click these in any order, and you will see that they are changing. And there must be a 2 hiding somewhere, because I'm not sure why it jumped from 1 to 3. Always love those real-time live presentations. The same thing can go for renumbering the grids, as well as rooms, as well as sheets. So it's all the same premise. I'm not going to bore you with showing every single one. Under our legend, so there is a material legend and then a legend by category. So our material legend will generate something like you see here. So this is actually going to grab all the materials that are in a particular view and create a filled region legend for you. Our legend by category, let me open this one up, can create a table that you see very similar to here. And you can add multiple types of parameters, as you see here. I have this pre-baked because it does take a few seconds. You can add in all of these parameters, and that will, of course, populate once the schedule is, once the legend is populated. All right, moving over to our room to floor. So if you ask me, this one's kind of named a little bit backwards. So it'd actually be floor to room. So think if you are doing a lot of finished floors within a space, this is a tool that you guys might find really useful and certainly cut down on time. So if I would come up here, I always forget I have to select the room first. Room to floor, it will bring up another dialog box, and you'll see I have a few floors in here that you can certainly select from. I am going to give it a little bit of an offset so we don't receive an error. And I'm going to do an OK. And you will see then that that floor hatch pattern is now appearing. All right, edit grid name. Very similar to the other one, but if I select all of these at once, it actually brings up a dialog box, as you see here. And I find this is really simple. Perhaps you need to completely renumber your grids. You know, you've added more in throughout the project. Perhaps you added a phase to the project, something along those lines. You can come in here and rename these all at once. Our assembly, a great and easy way to create assemblies, views, some utility information that goes along with those. So one of my personal favorites is this Resize Section Box, because if you're anything like me, you are constantly working in 3D as well as any 2D. And hopefully you got Enscape open on your other screen. This will actually allow you to resize your section box, no pun intended, to a specific room, a space, based upon grids, even views. So for example, I have this defaulted to my level 1. Perhaps I want to go to level 2. You can see that it is changing. I can dive into, let's say I just want to look at the restrooms in this instance. I can go apply that section box, and it really shrinks down to that particular area that I'm wanting to work on. So it's a quick and easy way. I'm going to turn that off for the moment. And then we come to our toggle tools. So within here, a few different ways, toggle categories and instances on and off. And a really simple way to, in addition to that, is the on and off with our little light bulbs here. So for example, I'm just going to turn off all of the walls. So the great thing about this is actually working with your visibility and graphics settings for your particular views. So just for a quick example, if I bring that dialog box up, you will see that my walls are turned off. So it works in conjunction with that. And then if I would turn this back on, of course, they automatically appear. You can also use this on to turn those back on if you're aware that they have been turned off. So in conjunction with the resize section box, I love to use the zoom to room or space. So if I'm going to resize this real quick to, say, my floor plan, I can come in here, zoom to, and perhaps I want to zoom into the atrium at this point. So it quickly takes me to that specific space, and I can still see what all is around it as well. So if you're working on large projects or anything with large amounts of site, I know it can certainly, get kind of convoluted, within the overall project. So that's just the, quick and easy way to zoom into certain spaces. Right, so our zoom utilities. So again, another kind of personal favorite, especially if you're working on larger projects, is this view lookup. So I don't have much in this project. It's kind of small, actually. But a great thing about this view lookup is you can actually basically take a peek into any view within your model without having to actually open it. So say, for example, you kind of lost where, that little detail went that you were working on yesterday. You can't find it again. You can't remember what you named it. You can come in here and you can actually cycle through some of these, find what you were looking for, and then you can actually open that view. And this is, again, just going to prevent you from trying to open 20 views to find that one detail that you were looking for. So next up is our crop region. So just a few different ways that you can actually start to create any crop regions. So you can do it based upon selection. You can match a crop region from another type of view. You can even use cameras to set up your crops. Under our sheets, there is kind of some powerful information within here. So View and Sheet Manager is probably a really good one that a lot of project managers are going to want to use. So it brings up yet another dialog box. And within here, this is all of your viewports that are on all of your sheets. Of course, your sheets are going to host all of your information. And then one of my, ones that I like to use a lot is the views. So within the views, you can see here that there actually is telling you what that title on the sheet is, because it might be different from your view name, what your actual discipline is, and then what sheet number and sheet name something lives on. So this is a quick and easy way to look at multiple views to tell what has been placed on sheets, what you might still need to create sheets for, just a really managerial type of dialog box. All right, so one of our last tools, and certainly not least, is our room views. So for the instance, I'm going to select one of the restrooms. And then what this is doing, you can actually create more views once you have a particular room. So for example, if you need to do enlargements for restrooms, or more than likely you might need to do elevation or drawings for your restrooms, for mounting heights, something along those lines. This is a great way, with a few less clicks, that you are going to be able to create that information. So this first one would be another subsequent floor plan. And this one down here is actually for elevations. So I'm going to have this one checked only. And in here is where you're going to start to set up how you want your name to actually appear for this particular room. So first up, I probably want it to be an interior elevation, not building. And then this is all of the parameters that you can select from. So you can see so far I've selected room name, number, and then I'm just going to say a cardinal direction. I'm going to add that in there. And then if you take a quick look in my project browser, there is no interior elevations in here. So there's no magic sorcery that I've, trying to pull a fast one on you. If I do an OK, you'll quickly see that the elevations are created. There's that name, the number, east, north, and west, and south, as well as your marker is appearing on your floor plan as well. So if you have to do that for multiple rooms, that's certainly going to save you a few clicks and typing to rename things, anything along those lines. Last but not last, there is a view depth override, and I just want to be transparent that if you are using the out-of-the-box depth queuing within Revit, this unfortunately does not work in conjunction with that, so just be aware of that. But this is great for those elevations or those camera perspectives where you do need to start to enhance them just a little bit. And then last but not least is our selection panel. So in my opinion, just a few different ways that you can start to select all of the information. So for example, if I'm going to select my doors, I can actually come in here and I can select all of that categories in the entire project. And if you have different types of doors and door families, you can certainly spend some time trying to select them all and filter down to just to that. So this is, again, it's just saving clicks and saving time to get you to that end result. And then last but not least, of course, is your settings, your license, and your help and all that. One thing I do want to point out is that you can actually put any or all of these tools to a keyboard shortcut. So if you're someone who likes those, you can certainly come in here, add more to them. You don't even have to go to try to find the ribbon, so it's going to save you even less clicks on top of everything else. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Rebecca for our Q&A session, and hopefully we've gotten some good questions from you all.
Awesome, thank you, Mariah. We do have some questions. Let me just take a look here. I was trying to launch a poll earlier, but they weren't working. So I'll go ahead and do those right now really quick as you guys are thinking of your questions or typing them in. So this one was actually for the real-time rendering. Do you think your Revit workflow would benefit from real-time rendering? So if you guys want to fill that in, yes or no. And then we have just one more question, and I promise we will get to that Q&A section. So we got some answers coming in. Got quite a lot of yeses. That's great to hear. I think we got all those votes in. And the next question is, if you currently have our productivity tools, so maybe that was something you had purchased, you hadn't used it yet, or you don't have. So whatever questions you guys have about our Revit tools and the Enscape plugin, we will get those answered momentarily. All right, so we have a lot of no's. So if you guys are interested in those tools, you can reach out to me if you don't know who your MicroCAD representative is. If you do, reach out to them. We do have the tools separately, and they also are available with our support package as well. So you could kind of purchase them together in a little like bundle set. But so we do have some questions here. This one is for Dan.
Okay.
What is the best way to use Enscape assets in a separate work set so as to not show up in final views?
That's a really good question. So one of the things that I didn't cover that if you're interested in learning more about, you can contact your MicroCAD sales rep and we can set something up. But is the ability to link Revit families to Enscape assets. In Revit, Enscape assets come in as plant objects. It sounds kind of weird, but the advantage that it gives us is that we can scale those objects if they're plant objects. So typically what we'll do is if we want the asset to display correctly in our drawings, we'll use a Revit family so that they display correctly in plan, elevation, and section. And then we'll link a high quality Enscape asset so that it displays correctly in the rendered view. That couch is kind of a good example. And there's a couch in the Revit family that you can grab. And then when you place it in plan view, it will look correct. Or you can place, and then you can link that to one of these Enscape couches so that it looks better in your visualization. The advantage of that workflow is not only do they display correctly in your drawings, but then they can also be scheduled. So anything you want to display in your Revit drawings or in your Revit schedules, that linking workflow is a really good workflow. For other objects, other entourage, maybe candlesticks on a table or magazines on a coffee table, that could just be all placed in Revit and then put into the plant category, and then you can just turn those off and on.
Thank you. Do you have another question? As far as the Revit library versus Enscape library, I spend a lot of time searching for objects and assets. How much faster or how much easier does Enscape make this process?
The searching of the assets, I think, is comparable. Unfortunately, I guess we ship with over 2,000 Enscape assets, and so they're organized by category. So that's one way you can search. You could do keyword searches. You can also save favorites. So new in version 2.9 is BIM managers can actually create libraries or sets of objects or assets for the designers in their office. This is particularly important when you're creating custom objects, something maybe with the company's brand or the client's brand that you want to bring into the scene. So searching, just simple searching, is very similar in Revit, but creating kind of custom sets could be a good strategy to make that process a little bit easier.
Oh, Rebecca, I think you got muted.
Sorry about that, guys. But thank you for answering that. We have another question. Is the BIM Query Tool able to pull shared parameter information across multiple family types as well? For example, a custom text parameter that exists on lighting, fixtures, and furniture.
So what the BIM query kind of does, it will pull the categories, and basically, if you're familiar with Excel, you have your different sheets at the bottom. So you're going to have your furniture on one sheet and your lighting fixtures on another. And of course, you're going to be able to pull those parameters. It just kind of depends where you're trying to go with that in the end. I don't think you're going to be able to like stack them like right on top, like your furniture is section 1 and your lighting is section 2. But it cannot be overall within the same file, if that makes sense. It's just on different sheets.
Okay, hopefully that answers. And then another question back to Enscape actually, how much larger or does Enscape make the Revit files larger?
The assets that we have they're optimized for speed. So when you're placing an asset into the Revit drawing, it will add overhead. But the polygonal count that we offer is very low. So you can add a lot of assets without ballooning your Revit file. It's one of the kind of secret sauces that Revit has, is that each of the assets is actually created by a 3D artist. They're not kind of mass produced. And those artists actually optimize all of the assets for rendering speed, which is kind of one of the main advantages of real-time rendering. So they're designed intentionally to be very light.
Okay, we are getting another question in through a little private chat here, asking about what are some of the licensing options? Can you talk about what those options are for Enscape?
For Enscape, sure. Probably the way that most people are buying it is on an annual basis. So we have an annual fixed seat pricing. This is where you'll buy one seat, it's attached to the machine. And then we have floating licenses options where you can install Enscape on as many machines as you want. There's a pool of licenses that then the firm can draw upon. If they run into problems, then we can help them with more licenses. So the floating and the fixed are the two main options. There is a monthly option that's less frequently used, but so those are the three options in total.
Okay, and then where can folks go for support for Enscape?
Yeah, support for Enscape, I mean, it is very easy to use. For frontline support, definitely go to your MicroCAD rep. They'll be able to help you out. There's a great community on our website that's manned by our tech support team. There's a learning resource center and knowledge base that can help get you up and running very quickly, but also provide real deep knowledge for those instances when you need it. And then with every Enscape license, technical support is free. So we're here to help you in any way that we can.
Awesome. So see if we have anything else coming in. We do have another one asking about the hardware requirements, also for Enscape as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. So Revit is, as people who use Revit know, it's very CPU intensive. So if you're going to be working in a BIM environment, you know, the more RAM you have in your machine, the faster your clock speed on your CPU. Enscape's a little different. So we're more what we call GPU or graphics card intensive. So what you'll want to make sure is that you have a fairly reasonable graphics card installed in your laptop or desktop. We recommend an NVIDIA GeForce 1660 is a good kind of base card. And then AMD makes an equivalent card to that. I can also chat the system requirements link. If you just Google Enscape system requirements, you can find them there also. And that'll take you to a link on our page where you can find all the system requirements.
Yeah, I think that would be great. That would be very helpful. All right, and probably the last question here, just so because we're getting to the end of the hour, can panoramic views be shared with clients like the Revit Render and Cloud Panorama, or
Yes.
QR code be generated to send to the client?
Yeah, they're very similar. I think the difference that you're going to find between the two is just how quickly one is created. The Enscape Panoramic is created almost instantaneously, and then 2, just the level of quality in the panorama itself.
Thank you. Hopefully that answers the questions. If there's anything we didn't get to, feel free to email it to me. We can look into it and get back to you. But before we sign off, we do have some other webinars coming up. Mariah, I don't know if you have our little website over there. So the first one is obviously today, right now. We do have a lot coming up this month. Mariah will be back Thursday to do generative design. And we're going to talk about our civil tools on Friday, reality capture with Leica. We have some BIM changes coming up for anyone who uses the AEC collection. That is pretty important. There's some good changes happening. And we have a couple more Navisworks, Fusion, and Bluebeam. So definitely register for those. Or if there's anything you are interested in that we don't have, definitely reach out. But I'm going to do one more quick scan, see if there's any major questions here. If I can find my question section again. I don't think we have any others. Nope, but like I said, if you guys do come up with any questions, or you are interested in the Enscape plugin, which is new, we're excited. Obviously, as you can see, it can do some pretty good things, and for our Revit productivity tools as well. So reach out to your MicroCAD rep or to me if you don't know who that is, and we can get you guys more information, get you some quotes, or if you were looking for more information on them as well. But thank you to both Dan and Mariah.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, for showing
Thanks,
us all the plugins that we have available for Revit. And if there is nothing else, we will sign off and hopefully see a lot of you Thursday for generative design and for our other webinars coming up this month. So thank you very much.
You guys have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Good.